Women History Month Speaker Series. Thank you all for making the time and being with us today. I also wanted to acknowledge my colleagues from the center, Dr. Gabby, Shalera, Ida, and we will probably have some more of our colleagues soon. My name is Suelen Schneider de Maria, and before we get started, I'd like to share with you some information about our center. The Center for Global Partnerships and Learning provides GSCP students with various services, ranging from publication support, certificate programs, access to GSCP Academic Journal, our Scholarship Without Borders, and a few other services such as cultural celebrations, such as this one that we're having this month, info sessions and workshops. Now, let me introduce you to our special guest, Dr. Heather Backstrom. She is an accomplished executive coach, facilitator, and speaker. She is passionate about cultivating empowered women leaders. Dr. Backstrom has coached and worked with women leaders in many industries, including finance, biotech, retail, municipalities, aerospace, and healthcare, as well as many nonprofits. She was a member of the Forbes Coaches Council and wrote several articles about leadership and women in the workplace that appeared in the publications. Her background in corporate human resources is complemented by skills she developed through her years of improv classes at Second City, iOS, UCB, and BATS. She infuses applied improv principles such as yes and deep listening and embracing mistakes in both coaching engagements and workshops. Dr. Backstrom is also the author of the women's leadership book, Collaborative Confidence, How Women Leaders Can Activate Self-Awareness, Amplify their authentic talents, and celebrate workplace change. If you haven't read her book, I strongly recommend. It's really good. She earned a master's degree in human resources development from Chapman University and an EDD in organization leadership from Pepperdine GSCP. Please, everyone, help me to welcome Dr. Heather Backstrom.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to you. Welcome. I see so many faces I know. I see Dina and Melinda and Ismenia, Maria, Rebecca. I'm hoping I'm not missing anybody, but it's just so wonderful to see so many faces, friends, and to also meet new friends. So I'm so glad that all of you are here. And I'm excited about this conversation to have with you around self-promotion. And sometimes women struggle with self-promotion. And so we're going to dive into an interactive conversation around self-promotion. And I do encourage you at any time to take yourself off of mute, make a comment, ask a question, give an experience, as well as to drop things into the chat, because there is so much more wisdom and experience in this collective room amongst all of us than there is in this one person sitting over here. And I love learning from other people. So please feel free at any point to jump in and incorporate your voice into the conversation. So I'm going to share my screen and we are going to get going. Okay. So our topic for today is to harness the power of authentic self-promotion. And self-promotion is something that women can struggle with. You know, there may be some of you in our conversation today who were born with it in your DNA, and you're just very comfortable with self-promotion and it comes with ease for you. Others of you in our conversation today, even the word self-promotion might make you actually feel a little queasy inside. And then others are in between on that scale. No matter where you may be on that scale, we can all learn together. So for those of you who are very comfortable and are natural at it, We can learn from you. And for those of you who have a little more discomfort, which I would put myself in that toward that category, I'm a work in progress, we can also learn from each other. So let's look at our time today, what it's going to look like. Okay. All right. So we're going to begin with understanding collaborative confidence. And as mentioned, I wrote a book recently. It just went up this month on Amazon in honor of Women's History Month. It's a women's leadership book. It's called Collaborative Confidence. And today you're going to learn a bit about what collaborative confidence is. I consider it your X factor of leadership. We're also going to consider different challenges that women have when it comes to self-promotion. And then we're going to look at, how you can authentically promote yourself, strategies to amplify your talents and your expertise that are authentic and genuine and feel comfortable for you. And then we also want to take action today. So please have a pen and paper handy, your tablet, whatever works for you to take some notes, because we do want to take action, take our learning and put it into practice immediately. So let's dive in now to how we're going to the rest of our content here. So let's begin with collaborative confidence. Collaborative confidence is a term that I created, and I also trademarked the term. And what it means is I am responsible for my confidence, and I'm also responsible for helping other women with their confidence, and vice versa. So there is this reciprocity, this mutual support that really is at the heart and center of collaborative confidence. I'm responsible for my own confidence, and I'm responsible for helping other women with theirs. Does that feel, does that feel reciprocity? Does that feel like this place of mutual support? And I think as women, we carry so much on our shoulders, and sometimes it can be very challenging and it can feel weighty. And one of the gifts of collaborative confidence is knowing that when it comes to your self-assuredness, that it doesn't all have to weigh on your shoulders. You can have another woman in your corner or a group of women in your corner, and you can mutually practice collaborative confidence. Then within collaborative confidence, there are 3 pillars. There's the activate pillar, the amplify pillar, and the accelerate pillar. And with the activate pillar, that covers a variety of different topics, including your core values, self-awareness, your strengths, and strengthening up your inner champion, quieting that inner critic voice and really shoring up your inner champion voice. Then the activate pillar has a very internal, introspective view associated with it. Then the amplify pillar has an external, looking out view associated with it. And within the amplify pillar, the types of topics that are covered in it include executive presence, showcasing your talents and your expertise, amplifying your talents and your expertise, and amplifying and highlighting the talents, contributions, and expertise of other women. So within the amplify pillar, that's where we really get into the mutual support, the reciprocity. Then the accelerate pillar, that has the broader organizational view associated with it. And it recognizes, in order to really leverage women's leadership, organizations have responsibilities. They're part of the equation too. And they have responsibilities to create cultures that are human-centric and that really support women and women's leadership. And that can be through sponsorship, equal pay, flexible work environments, and addressing burnout. So that's a quick overview of collaborative confidence. Today, we're going to hone in on that amplify pillar, and specifically that part of amplify pillar about self-promotion, about showcasing your contributions, your achievements, your skills, your talents, and showcasing the same of other women as well. So let's take a look at struggles. Why self-promotion can be so hard for some women. So why is self-promotion so hard? Research by the Self-Promotion Gap shows that 69% of women would rather minimize their successes than talk about them, especially to other strangers. And 47% of women would rather run errands in the rain. A lot of opportunities to do that the last few months, right? And 43% would rather clean the bathroom. Now, is that like unbelievable? And if you're part of that 43% who would rather clean the bathroom, I will just let you know, I have got 2 bathrooms. You are welcome to come to my house anytime. So I'm curious, what do you think about this information? What do you think, what strikes you about either these statistics or your thoughts on this question that's on the slide? Why is self-promotion so hard? And feel free to take yourself off of mute. Feel free to drop something in the chat. Let's open up and hear from the community that's here today.
So Heather, I'll go first. This is
Yes.
Dina. Hi, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too.
So I'm just going to throw out there that when it comes to self-promotion, I'm one of those that I'd rather minimize my success because I tend to focus more on other people. But I will say that I notice on a regular and continuous basis, men have no problem self-promoting themselves.
Exactly.
Right. And so I hear that on a regular basis. And I've recently, probably because I'm reading your book, really been thinking about, you know, how you go about doing that without sounding, because I know a lot of us women think this way, without sounding like you're bragging.
Right.
Right. So that would be my comment.
Yeah. And you're spot on, Dina. Exactly that.
Yeah.
And research shows that men have greater ease. They're more apt to self-promote than women. And exactly your point about when we do self-promote, we run that risk of like coming across as too much, as overbearing. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Right.
Who else would like to chime in with their initial thoughts?
Heather, I'm actually one of those people. In fact, I've been told on multiple occasions that I do a really good job with the center, but that I don't promote it enough. And it's interesting. There's this, I don't know if it's fear or I don't know if it's imposterism that shows up, or it's I elevate all of those around me. It's really hard for me to say, look at me, look at me.
Yes, absolutely. It is. And I'll tell you a quick story about me. So, I got my doctorate at Pepperdine, and for a full year after getting my doctorate, and I had a 4.0 GPA. I was so proud of myself. A year later is when I finally put Dr. Heather Backstrom on my website. Because it was like kind of, ooh, am I really ready to say that to the world? And yet a friend of mine, he's a dear friend. I love him to death. We're great friends. We went to school at the same time. I did get my doctorate a year before him. But anyway, what did he do? Oh, I don't even think the diploma had been printed, or, and he had doctor on his website. So yeah, it can be hard. It can be difficult. Ismania, I see you raised your hand.
Yeah, I had a couple different thoughts about the statistic. The first is, I guess, that they would rather, that 69% of women would rather minimize. I'm surprised by like the preference to minimize as opposed to just outright being completely passive and not doing anything at all. So I think that's really striking. And I think it's also, at least for me personally, when I worked in the retail space, it felt like you have all these, performance indicators and metrics that show that a person is talented in the space that they work in. And so it almost felt like, why do I need to go and tell you I'm really good at my job when you can see on paper that I'm really good at my job, right?
Exactly.
And so it almost felt like brown nosing and unnecessary and kind of smarmy. So anyway, so those were my thoughts that came up in looking at the statistics.
Right. Exactly. If it's on paper, and if I'm working really hard, it should be enough to be recognized, right? And unfortunately, working hard doesn't necessarily mean recognition. And just because it's on the performance review or the metrics, again, doesn't necessarily mean it will be noticed and recognized. I think Charlotta has her hand, and I can't always see everybody. So please, if I can't see you, please just jump into the conversation.
Yes, there are a couple of things. I want to take your attention to the chat as well. Sue Ellen said, I was taught that women promoting themselves are arrogant or aggressive. Instead, I was taught that a woman should be caring for others. So the focus was always putting others in the spotlight. Asia kind of echoed that as well, and then talked about the places where she's learned about her own self-worth. I would venture to say, Dr. Heather, that it is those master narratives that someone else has handed to us that we have embraced and made our own, that stand in the way of us being able just to stand in the gifts that we offer to the world, because there's someone else's story being played over and over for us about who we are.
Yes, yes, those influences from society, from others, from our parents, from educators. Absolutely, that all influences it all influences our the degree of our comfort level with self-promotion. And the reasons why women struggle with self-promotion, we're all unique individuals. So what affects me in terms of my struggle is different than what affects another woman with her struggle. A few things to point out, which you pointed out, Charlotte, and others have already chimed in on about, is that women are often have a lot of affinity for relationships and a sense of belonging. So can be this fear that if we show off too much, if we self-promote, if we come across as a little boastful, it can be unfavorable in our relationships and friendships. And so that can be a reason, to shy away from it. Another reason is that women, we take care of everybody and everything, don't we? Right? I mean, we are the caretakers of the world. We're taking care of families, we're taking care of households, we're taking care of elderly parents or relatives, our neighborhood, our religious communities, if we participate in that. There's so many caretaking aspects of women, and that kind of work is often unrecognized and is often uncompensated. So we can be kind of habituated to just do the work, do it happily, and don't expect to be recognized. And then another influential factor can be, and this one I very much relate to, is being raised as the good girl. And the good girl's not going to put doctor on her website right away, right? The good girl's going to be demure and humble and so forth. So let's move on and look at, and I thank you so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it, and it adds to the richness of our time together. So despite these facts of 69% of women would rather minimize, a bunch of us would rather run errands in the rain, and some of us would like to clean the bathroom. Despite all of that, 83% of women find that when they hear about the accomplishments of other women, they feel inspired. They feel motivated and inspired. So just know that when you do own an accomplishment, when you do engage in authentic, comfortable, genuine self-promotion, you are a beacon of inspiration and motivation to the women around you. And if we tie that back to the concept of collaborative confidence, I'm responsible for my own confidence. I'm responsible for helping other women with their confidence. We just kind of tie it back to that concept of reciprocity. You can reframe self-promotion to, when I do this, when I speak well of myself, I'm inspiring other women, and I'm showing them that it's okay and that it's good and that it's healthy to speak well of themselves. So let's look more deeply at what the research tells us in terms of challenges. And some of you have already mentioned some of these challenges. So women leaders are less likely to self-promote, even when they perform better than others. So when you look around the person next to you or down the hall or in the other division, and you're actually a better performer than them, women still will tend to not be as favorable about their accomplishments and genuinely, authentically self-promoting their contributions. As mentioned about in reference to men, women also talk less favorably about their current performance, their past performance and current performance, as well as their future ability and opportunity than equally performing men. So again, we're more hesitant to talk about our performance, current and future looking. And then research shows us that women face this double bind, this tightrope that we walk. And if you're a woman of color, that tightrope is skinnier and skinnier and skinnier. So overall, women face this double bind of being demanding, yet caring, being authoritative, yet participative, being an advocate for oneself, and yet serving others, maintaining distance, and still being approachable. And it's like women are being asked to be both humble and self-assured at the same time. But in the workplace, in life, if we're too humble, then our accomplishments can easily be overlooked. We can fly under the radar. We can be working as hard as ever, but if we're too humble, if we're too modest, people don't necessarily connect the dots, and how we make the contributions that we make, the achievements that we accomplish can easily be overlooked. And yet, if we're too self-assured, then how do we come across? You know, we come across as bossy, overbearing, she's too much, right? So there's this tightrope that women walk. I'm curious your experience of these kinds of challenges, or your observation of these kinds of challenges for the women in your life. Again, please come off of mute or drop something in the chat, and let's hear from the group here.
I'm happy to unmute for a second, and good to see you again, Heather. I want to say Dr. Backstrom, because out of respect, I have to do that. But, you know, I actually work as an executive recruiter, and I see this play out all the time, where the same type of confidence in a woman is received by oftentimes panels of male interviewers as overly assertive. It's described in a way that has a negative connotation versus a male candidate coming across with that same confidence, but they are described in a more positive way. And, you know, I know some of the folks on this call are even more in-depth researchers around the ambition penalty, but it's like, I see it every day. I'm reminded of a quote that we use in my family, which is, a quiet mouth doesn't get fed. And my husband actually reminded me the other day, he's like, think about baby birds in a nest. If they aren't all squawking when the mom comes to feed them, the ones that aren't getting the worms, they're getting pushed out. You know, it's like, I know it's a harsh analogy, but I guess my takeaway message is, despite the education and training that is needed around implicit bias to ensure that the folks that are the gatekeepers, the ones that are assessing talent, are doing it in an objective way to reverse the ambition penalty. In addition to that, we also need to ensure that we're speaking up, you know, because a quiet mouth is not going to get fed.
Exactly, Jeanette, absolutely. And speak up for ourselves, and in the spirit of collaborative confidence, speak up on behalf of another woman, or encourage another woman to own her accomplishments, to be comfortable sharing her accomplishments and her expertise. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, another piece of research that I found very interesting was, there was some research done when it comes to male scientists, researchers who are, you know, writing scientific papers. And what this research showed is that male scientists in their research papers, they tend to use superlative words like, my research is unparalleled, unique, unprecedented, you know, kind of this attention grabbing language, in comparison to female researchers who don't tend to use that kind of language. And for those of us on the call, and I know there are many of us here today who are familiar with the research community, you know, having your papers recognized, having them cited, that is the pinnacle of research, right? And so you want that. And if women scientists and researchers are holding themselves back from using that kind of language to describe their research, maybe that's hampers their work being noticed, recognized, and cited. So we've looked at some challenges. Now let's look forward and say, well, what can we do about this? What are some strategies on how can I self-promote in ways that feel authentic? And I want to stress this word authentic, because for me, it's not about putting on a falseness to yourself. It might feel uncomfortable at first, some of these things, but it's about finding self-promotion strategies that feel genuine to who you are. It's not following a recipe that some book has given you or a Google search tells you. It's about finding those self-promotion strategies that feel authentic, genuine to who you are. So let's talk about some examples, and I'm sure as I talk about these, there will be ideas that pop in your mind. So again, please feel free to chime into the conversation, add your ideas to the chat. So if the words self-promotion make you feel a little queasy, if you're on that end of the scale where it's like uncomfortable and queasy, you can reframe those words and not even use those words at all. You can exchange them for words such as clear communication, or relationship building, or visibility building. So change the language and see how that sits with you. See if that shifts your comfort level with this idea of self-promotion. Another idea is about raising your visibility. And you can raise your visibility in lots of different ways. If we think of a traditional, meeting, conference room setting in the workplace, instead of sitting along the perimeter, the wall, sit at the conference room table. Better yet, sit near the head or at the head of the conference room table. Make yourself visible by how you stand out. You can also make yourself visible by volunteering for projects, volunteering for presentations. Away on virtual, we've been working a lot virtually, and we'll continue to work and engage virtually. A way that I do it virtually is I always wear color when I'm on Zoom, especially when I'm with a group of people. Now, if it's just one-on-one with a friend, I might wear navy or black. But if I'm with a group of people on Zoom, you will never see me in navy or black. That's just my choice, because it's a way to make myself visible. Another way to make yourself visible is around speaking up, speaking up in meetings, in conversations. And with my coaching clients, I've sometimes had women say, well, I don't want to speak up just for the sake of speaking up. And I completely agree with that. When you speak up in a meeting, hopefully you're speaking up because you're adding value to that conversation. You're not just speaking up for the sake of it. So if you don't happen to have an opinion, but you want to raise your visibility, some alternatives to giving an opinion to speak up can be asking a clarifying question. Another way of speaking up in a meeting when you don't happen to have an opinion is to connect what two different people have said. Susie, I heard you say this. Robert, I heard you say that. Did I hear you correctly? And that can enrich the conversation, the group dynamic happening in the meeting. Another way to raise your visibility is to remind yourself, to raise your self-promotion is to remind yourself of what you do and how you do it and the impact you make by keeping an accomplishments journal or something to that effect, where you're tracking what you've done, how you've done it, the impact that it has made. So you are your own advocate by reminding yourself. And when you remind yourself of all of the wonderful, great things you've done, it can be easier to talk about those things. You can also emulate another woman. So look around your environment, look around your office, look around your friends, think about famous women, and emulate qualities in them that really appeal to you, that stand out to you. How do they self-promote? How do they act? What do they do that I can pick and choose? Oh, that woman, she does that really well. And this other woman, she does that other thing really well that raises her visibility, that raises her self-promotion. I can emulate those qualities in myself. Another way of engaging in authentic self-promotion is infusing credibility into your language. And I'll give you an example that illustrates this. So I know someone who is an in-house counsel at Cigna Healthcare. And sometimes, not always, but when she feels it would be effective to do so, she will infuse her credibility into her language. And here's an example of what she will sometimes say. She will say, based upon the hundreds of cases I have litigated, my recommendation is ... So see how her credibility is threaded in there based upon the hundreds of cases I have litigated. Or our position on this is strong based upon the hundreds of contracts I have reviewed. So find ways to just gently infuse your credibility into your language. It is a strategy that if you infuse it into every conversation, it's probably going to grow old pretty quickly for the other person hearing, but it can be a strategy that every once in a while can be very helpful, that demonstrates your credibility, your expertise, your talents in a way that's related to the conversation. And then use powerful language. Steer away from using words like help, assist. Instead, really practice using words like lead, spearhead, direct, oversee, those strong, powerful, action-oriented words that really demonstrate the strength of your capabilities and your leadership and the expertise that you carry. So those are a handful of ways to authentically self-promote. I'm curious, what other ideas do you have? What do you maybe already do that the rest of us can learn from? So again, join the conversation by speaking up or dropping an idea or a comment into chat.
Heather, I think one of the things that I've learned over the last couple of years is that a really important thing for women to do in particular, and why this is, I don't know, but I think it really does add a lot of credibility, is that when we're speaking in meetings or when we're talking with our boss about something we've accomplished, or even with a peer and subordinates, it's really, really important to use factual information. So a lot of times I think women tend to talk, and I know I do, tend to talk from a relational perspective. And if you notice, men tend to talk from percentages and, numbers and some very specific facts. And, it's, I think that's an area that would really help all of us to just kind of raise up that level of leadership, I guess.
Yes, that's a great idea, Dina. Exactly. Speak in facts, logic, tangible information can be a very helpful way to self-promote, to raise yourself, make yourself more visible and self-promote yourself amongst others. Yes, absolutely.
Yep. Raises your level of leadership, I think.
It does. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Who else has a thought, an idea, something they do themselves that the rest of us, if we can emulate you?
I have a couple of things that I could share. One is that I think, and similar to Jeanette, I want to call you Dr. Backstrom because I know you as my professor, and so it feels weird for me to be like Heather. But I think one of the things that really helped me reframe this self-promotion was when I was connecting with a leader at my prior organization, and she said to me, well, this is a skill like any other leadership skill that you've honed for yourself, whether it's your business acumen or your, people leadership skills. These organizational positioning skills are equally as important, and you need to practice it. And I think reframing it for me, I'm a lifelong learner. I will always be that person that will jump in opportunity to learn and go to school. that really just resonated with me personally. And then the other thing that I have found, two other things. One is learning how to take a compliment. I think as women, we have a tendency to just be like, oh yeah, like that's no big deal, but really being able to say like, thank you, I worked really hard on that, or just acknowledging that you did put a lot of effort into whatever that result was. And the last one, which I think I caught more recently in working with some new colleagues, is the tendency to diminish our own expertise with the, does that make sense? When we're really not asking for clarification, we're using it more of as a softener. So that one was a really hard practice for me to break, but I'm very intentional about trying to avoid that unless I am genuinely checking for understanding.
Yes, exactly. And that absolutely is Amelia. And that's something that I write about in my book, and another presentation that Jeanette happened to see a week or so ago. I talk about the tag on, does that make sense? So you've just said something, you've provided information, given an explanation, what have you. And then at the end, you say, does that make sense? As if what you just said didn't make sense. You weren't articulate, you weren't clear. So chop that off. Don't say, does that make sense? Because it to your point, it just diminishes what you just said. It can diminish you. Instead, you can say, what are your thoughts on what I've just said? Or what are your questions on what I just shared? So when we say, does that make sense? Exactly like you just said, Ismenia, it kind of signals that we didn't do such a good job and what we said did not make sense. Yeah. And to your other point about women saying thank you, absolutely. Just say thank you. It's not oh no, no big deal. Oh, this whole thing, or oh, anybody could have done that. Just say thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to move into some preparation for action planning. So we're going to take a few minutes of quiet writing time. Hopefully you have a pen and paper or a tablet handy. And we're going to take a few minutes of quiet time. Actually, before we do this, Charlotta, was there anything in the chat? I didn't want to overlook anything if there was.
So I am just gonna, infusing your expertise in a conversation is a good technique because it sounds like you're giving context and is not off-putting. And that was by Rebecca. And then Crystal wrote, we also need to get rid of the filler, right? As if we need validation of.
Yeah. Yeah, those filler words. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we're going to move into some quiet contemplation for a couple of minutes. And here are some prompts to free write on. What's possible for you by engaging in more authentic self-promotion? And with this one, I want you to dream, like, what's possible? Boy, what's possible is I could get interviewed on Good Morning America, right? Or what's possible, I can do this. So dream big. What's possible for you by engaging in more authentic self-promotion? What are the big, bold, audacious ways you can engage in self-promotion? Like, don't hold yourself back. Like, what are those big ways that really go for it with self-promotion? And then in the spirit of collaborative confidence, how can you help other women? How can you help other women engage in self-promotion? So we'll take a couple of minutes of quiet writing time. I will keep an eye on the clock and then let you know when we come back. So start to wrap up your thoughts. And I'm going to move to the next slide. Now, based upon your contemplation and our conversation today, what is one important, powerful, authentic self-promotion action you will take to amplify your talents and your expertise? So what is just one action that you will take? And as you're writing that down, I think it would be lovely if we could break into smaller conversations for this next part. So if we could move into breakout rooms, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And let's move into, if we could, perhaps approximately 3 people per breakout room. Yeah, approximately 3, 2 to 3. To do some sharing, some one-on-one or 3, groups of 3 sharing of what is that action that you're going to take. And we'll just do breakout rooms fairly quickly. We'll just do 5 minutes. And if we could prepare those breakout rooms, and again, share with your breakout room partners, what is that action that you're going to take? And then, why are you choosing that action? Why is that action important, meaningful to you?
Oops, just a second. I will. Oh, have you done, Charlotta? All right. Okay, thank you.
And I got an invitation to join a room. Should I decline it?
It's up to you.
Oh.
I just did it automatically, so it would pop people into rooms.
Okay, I'm going to
Okay.
decline it so they can have their own. Okay.
I will join the room that you declined, Dr. Heather. So we have one more person there.
Perfect, perfect. Oh, and Rebecca's not in a room. Rebecca's a friend of mine.
She was assigned a room, she just hasn't gone there.
Oh, okay, okay. Not sure if you can hear us, Rebecca, but if you need any help, let us know. Take yourself off a mute or let us know in chat. Okay, so she's saying she can't join a room. No problem, Rebecca. No problem.
She can't join a room?
Yeah, she said she can't join a room right now. So,
Oh, got it.
yeah, for whatever reason. So that's fine. Yeah. I'm gonna scroll through the chat. It looks, I love how people are so engaging. This is great.
And then just let me know when you want me to close the rooms.
Oh, I thought you set the time for 5 minutes.
It didn't give me an option to set the time. So
Okay, no
I'll
problem.
close it here in the next, I'll close it here in the next 4
Uh,
minutes. Or 3 minutes. You tell me.
Yeah, let's do, because I want to let them talk a little bit. So yeah, maybe within 3 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. why don't we go ahead and bring them back?
Okay.
Thank you.
So they were given the minute, and now it's going to close up in a minute here.
Perfect, perfect, perfect. Okay, people are starting to pop back in.
So sorry you didn't get to finish, Laura.
That's okay. As I was mentioning, I'm not a big talker in front of groups, but thank you so much for listening. And, you know, I was just saying that it's very inspiring to hear everybody else's stories too.
Yeah.
All right. More people are popping back in. And you could just give me a signal when everybody's back in the room.
Everyone's back.
Okay, fantastic. Let's hear from a handful of people. What approach, what strategy appealed to you? What are you going to use going forward in terms of authentic self-promotion? Let's hear some voices, some comments in the chat. Self-promote yourself.
Where is she? I'm looking for Dr. Bramia. You know, she
I'm
didn't get to
here.
finish her thought, but it was so good at the end. And I think it kind of encompasses a lot of what we were saying amongst our groups. So do you want to repeat for the group about
Sure.
just paying attention to our language?
Yeah, it's short but sweet, and so relevant that I loved just Dr. Backstrom, that you suggested that we really look at our language and the phrasing we're using and so forth. And I have had a tendency to say exactly that. Does that make sense? You know, that sort of thing. So that's so part of my repertoire. So I'm really going to pay attention to that, and just the encouragement of this group is really beautiful and very helpful. So yeah, so thank you for that.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Wonderful. And that has been something I have tried to break, or I worked on breaking myself. Does that make sense? And I know there are times when it still flits out of my mouth. So yeah. I'm a work in progress. And those words don't come as easily as they used to come. Yeah. Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Who else would like to share by, again, joining the conversation or dropping ideas or comments into chat?
In the chat, I had an idea for a large photo project in my community and have been dragging my feet at resolve to actually take the first step. And that's Rebecca Little.
Wonderful. That's fantastic, Rebecca. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah, great. Yes, another, I can't see everybody, so just take yourself off of mute, just speak up or just drop your comment in chat.
I really appreciate this. And I was off camera for the beginning of it because I was literally finishing my day's work. And I have not been mindful about just how much I self-diminish and just how much I have just even culturally misappropriated some of my time in Japan, living there. Experts really do minimize their expertise in that culture. And I think there's a part of me that took that in way too deep. And especially in the context I had growing up, where women were not valued and there was a lot expected. I don't think I had fully, just consciously faced awareness of just how much that has caused me to self-edit and to really just even the way I manage and conduct and just even consider myself. And that, first of all, I need to do a better job of my own self-dialogue and affirming myself, and not waiting for other people to do it, because it's not always going to happen. But just, I think that was a really, really powerful wake-up call for me. And I want to rewatch this when it's, I think I'm going to need to rewatch this a few times to really get this, but this was very timely and I deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That's so meaningful what you said. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. And, how it becomes ingrained in us through our experiences, right? And it's so easy to self-edit. Absolutely. And to self-edit in a way that, to your words, diminish ourselves. Self-editing in a way that, makes you credible and powerful and strong, and self-editing out. Does that make sense? Wonderful. Yes, please self-edit those things. But self-editing our worth, self-editing our accomplishments, self-editing our talents. Yeah, that's the muscle to build, that we don't self-edit those things. Thank you for sharing. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Who else would like to share? As we're starting to wrap up the corner of our time together, but I want to give one last opportunity for others to share, again, either in the chat or to share by speaking up and taking yourself off of mute.
Dr. Heather, if I may, in our group, I shared that I had a good, leader who inspired me, and I tried to emulate her, including, the language I was going to use, etc. in the company I worked for in Brazil. And, for example, when we went to meetings, how could I, self-promote myself, my job, my team, using numbers, as I think was Dina who mentioned about how we should do that, etc. But still, I use a lot of language that diminishes myself. I ask a lot, I'm sorry, I apologize myself a lot. I do all this stuff, I use, does that make sense? Just, to keep up if, people are understanding. Yes. So for me, the first thing that is the use of language and the improvement on our attitudes is a continual learning, because when we get rid of some, habits, we will have to work in the next, list of habits, something like that. So this is one thing. And the other thing that came up to me is, okay, I have been working so hard, doing so many things, but I haven't worked in my own brand, my personal brand. So this is another thing. I always work in a brand that is, for example, in the company where I have another partner, instead of, okay, what is Swellen's brand? And this is something that I think it's connected to my action from now on. How can I develop my own brand, my personal brand? So thank you so much for that. Your presentation is so inspiring, your work, your book, everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And thank you for sharing your story. And again, relatable. There's myself, and I know many of us in the room can relate exactly to what you're saying. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Well, as we start to wrap up, I did write a book. It's called Collaborative Confidence, and it is on Amazon. It's my first book. It came out, as I think I mentioned at the top of our time, it came out this month in honor of Women's History Month. So, and some of you on this call actually helped me because I interviewed some of you that are on this call. So thank you so much for those of you who contributed to making that book a reality. I'm going to share my slides one last time, and then we will close things out. So fantastic about the action that you are going to be taking. Go forth, own the action, own your authentic, genuine self-promotion. Allow your self-promotion to envelop you like a cozy, comfortable blanket so that it's authentic and genuine to who you are. And again, this is just some information on my book. It's called Collaborative Confidence. And the subtitle is How Women Leaders Can Activate Self-Awareness, Amplify Their Authentic Talents, and Accelerate Workplace Change. My contact information is there, my phone number, my email, my website. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, to just reach out to me. I'm always happy to be associated with anyone associated with Pepperdine, and of course with any strong, powerful, talented women like you are. So thank you so much for today. I really appreciate it. And I'll toss things back over to our host here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Backstrom. It was inspiring, amazing. I feel refilled with a lot of energy and positive thoughts about, my self-promotion. I hope that everyone here is feeling the same. In name of the center, I would like to thank you so much for doing that. We really appreciate. We still have some one more event, which will be in next Wednesday, March 29, midday, with Yas about our career story. So I would like to invite you all to attend this event, our last event. And I also want to ask Dr. Gabby or Dr. Brummy if you want to say a few words before we close in the name of the center. Dr. Gabby is the mind behind all the center and all the good stuff that we do, and Dr. Brummy as well. So.
Dr. Brummy, would you like to close us out?
Sure. I'd be happy to. It's a grand pleasure. I know I'll miss a lot of things because this center does so many different things. And we are so proud and excited about the work that we have been able to do with all of our wonderful members and all of the community that's come together to attend, participate, and contribute. So thank you so much from the Center for Global Learning and Partnerships. I said that, partnerships and learning. All right, I got all the words in there, if not in the right order. But thank you so much for attending this presentation in honor of the Women's History Month. Did I say that right? All right. It's such a pleasure to be here and to participate and to see everyone. Thank you so much for attending. And we hope to see you at future events as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brummy. And thank you, Dr. Backstrom, for collaborating with us both at the Center for Women's History Month and the podcast. We truly feel blessed having you as part of our community. So as always, onwards and upwards. So Ellen?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, with that, I think we can conclude the night. Thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Dr. Backstrom. That's it. Have you a blessed and beautiful evening, everyone. Take care, be safe, and see you in the next event.